Hey guys, Trevor with Shadow Systems. It's Technical Tuesday, and I think that experienced shooters often fail new shooters when they're teaching them how to shoot because they don't spend enough time on what is probably the #1 reason that people miss the target when they're new, okay? And it kind of drives me crazy because it was something I struggled with when I was a, young kid learning to shoot and competing, and it's just not talked about very much. I don't know why. So we're going to talk about it briefly today. All right. We're going to talk about pre-ignition flinch, or anticipation of recoil, which results in the shooter dipping the muzzle. And the reason it's kind of frustrating is, we'll spend all this time talking about proper, stance and perfect sight alignment, and then the person will go to pull the trigger and they're doing this, right? And it's like, let's try to overcome that first, because that's what sent you off the bottom of the target. And so what happens is, for new shooters, a lot of times they'll start out shooting pretty well, and then they'll develop this involuntary response. And they'll dip the muzzle in anticipation of recoil. And nobody sees it, because the gun recoils, and it hides the whole thing that happened in the blink of an eye. So there are some techniques that you can use to try to improve this if you have it, and I will show you how to diagnose it and confirm if you're struggling with pre-ignition flinch or anticipation of recoil or whatever. By the way, I've called it pre-ignition flinch because you'll sometimes see really experienced shooters will drop the hammer perfectly, and then they'll dip the muzzle a little bit. So it will only affect your impact if you are, doing it pre-ignition. If you have post-ignition flinch, then that's not an issue. But just so you know, that's like the extreme minority of people out there. Most people are yanking the trigger. Okay. Let's see. One other comment. So you'll diagnose this also on the target. Usually for a right-handed shooter, if they're flinching, they'll send the rounds low left. And for a left-handed shooter, they'll usually send the rounds low right. But if you're lining up your sights perfect and you're feeling so great about everything and you're pulling the trigger and the rounds are like way low, or they're erratic, or I've even seen people shoot the floor, it is a pre-ignition flinch, and that is what you need to focus on first. All right, so here's what I do. Over here, I've got 17 rounds, okay? And the ones that are red are loaded with, they're dummy rounds, okay? They're reloaded, but you can buy a dummy round, a box of dummy rounds online, or snap capsule work, anything that replicates a bullet but is inert. And so what I do is I just kind of mix them up, and then I sort of look across the room, and I'm not paying attention, and I'm just now going to sort of load my mag, okay? And you can have somebody else load your magazine for you. That's another way to do it. But the idea is to mix in these dummy rounds with your full mag, okay? Because what's going to happen is you're going to hit one of those when you're trying to shoot that nice tight group, and you're going to immediately see the muzzle dip, and it's honestly kind of embarrassing. You'll sometimes see it happen when somebody goes to slide lock, a new shooter, and they're not aware the slide is locked back, and they'll yank the trigger again. So, all right, so I've picked up all 17. Gun's loaded, and now I'm just going to shoot a little group out there. All right, here we go. So theoretically, you should see this gun stay perfectly still. I'm not perfect. Maybe I'll have something go on, but you should see the gun not move. Oh, there it was. So I hit a dummy round. You saw the gun move a little bit. Not bad, but a little bit. There's got to be one in there somewhere. Oh, there it was. Oh, there it was. Oh, there it was. So you saw a couple times I moved the gun a little bit, a couple times I didn't. And it's hard for me to say if that would have been a post-ignition flinch, but I'll just call it a pre-ignition flinch and say it's bad marksmanship, because I don't know. But out there at the target, we got a pretty decent little group. We can go out there and look at it. So we're only at about 8 yards right now, so it's close. But, that's what you should hopefully see. If you see hits down here, that means there's something wrong. And that means you're probably pulling the trigger and launching it in anticipation of, launching the gun low in anticipation of the recoil. Okay? So, how do you solve it? You solve it with the ball dummy drill, which is what we just did because it shows you the problem. And then the other thing is you dry fire a ton. The way I finally cured flinch when I was, learning to compete as a kid was I just dry fired a ton. And I got to the point where my brain just expected the gun to go click almost. That I wasn't, that everything that happened after my finger pulled the trigger was just mechanical performance things not related to me. It was everything that I had to do was get up to that brake in that shot brake, and that was my job, was to get there without moving the gun. And so I learned to do that by dry firing a whole bunch. And so that's what I recommend people do to try to get rid of it. Okay? All right, start there if your rounds are going low. Good luck. We'll see you next time.